Thank you, Simeon. Henrik, Julie, are you able to speak? Miguel?
I hope so.
Hi.
Michael?
Yes.
Thank you. So
Yeah.
last session before we end the day. Henrik, yeah, we can see you. Miguel, we can see you. Julie, if you're okay with it, yeah, we can see you. Thank you. So who is excited? This is the last session of the day. Okay. All right. So what is this whole API business? So what is the change control board? What are the special interest groups? I hope all of you know this, but if there are members here, we don't know what this is. This session is aimed at addressing that and maybe removing that intrigue from what this is. All this is. So we have on the call Henrik, Julie, Michael, and myself are here, of course, and Miguel as well. And some, if not most of them, are actually acting as conveners on a voluntary basis. So thank you so much for your contributions. And first, maybe we can start off with introductions. Henrik, can we start off with you?
Yes, hello everyone. Very nice to see you all, even if it's only through a camera. My name is Henrik Karlsson and I'm based in Austria, but I am originally from Sweden. I'm working for Ericsson as a system architect and a product owner for our Ericsson Wallet platform. Part of my job is to drive standardization for financial services within Ericsson. And part of this is then to drive the Mojaloop interoperability API SIG. But I'm also active in other forums such as the GSMA Mobile Money API. I have been involved in this FSP interoperability API since 2016 when the project started between 4 leading mobile money technology providers. If you have any questions regarding the Mojaloop FSP interoperability API, then please just contact me.
Hi, I'm Julie. I work for a company called Passio, who basically settlement of value within a network. I just joined a month ago. Actually, prior to this, I work for a company called Wet Compass Labs. We focus on payment transformation. This is when I came across Mojaloop. So in 2020. And since then, I've been working mainly with Michael, Paul as well on ISO 222 and also cross-border payments. My background is payments, so I've been in the payment industry for more than 10 years now. Like I said, working for consultancy and also vendor in this space.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Julie.
I
Miguel,
think I'll go next.
Michael and I, sorry?
Should I go next?
Miguel, Michael and I, we already introduced ourselves. So I'm thinking we'll skip that and jump right
Okay,
into the questions.
all right. Yeah, that's fine.
So the first question, I want to keep this, the last session of the day as brief as possible. So I hope you can understand. How can an implementer, so we've seen Titsa works and we have the Rwanda size now, and of course the vNext implementation team as well. How can an implementer or an adopter of Mojaloop get engaged with the various special interest groups and ask for changes, advice, and report bugs?
Well, so each of the areas that we've talked about has its own special interest group. And basically, that special interest group is responsible for the proposing changes to the APIs in their area. They have regular meetings. Those meetings are open to anybody who's interested. And although, of course, Sam rightly emphasized implementers and operators of existing Mojaloop systems, we're also interested in people with a general industry background who can help us in these particular areas. Now, the APIs are all published. They're all published on the community side. So if you want to know what's in them now, then you can go and look there. I'm also producing a document that for the community site, which is intended to tell you which areas have their own API special interest groups, and to give you the addresses of the conveners leaders of each special interest group, so that you can get in touch and find out when the meetings are. But we'd really like more involvement from the wider community. You don't have to be a specialist in APIs, though it's nice if you are, but really we have to think about how to modify the APIs to meet the requirements, the evolving requirements of payment systems and of Mojaloop payment systems in particular. So if there are things that you wish Mojaloop did, then probably the place to start is either with the product council or with the relevant special interest group to talk about the APIs, because very often there are ways in which you can use the APIs to do things, but it's not obvious from looking at them. So these are areas where we can improve.
You already preemptively answered the question that I was going to ask, Michael. Thank you. So I was going to ask, where does the CCB and the special interest groups fit in? We talked about the product council, the DA. So let's move on to the next one. So we have these change requests to the APIs and then solution proposals. So how does this process work for the APIs? Miguel, will you be able to take that?
Yeah, sure. In fact, if I can share my screen, I can show you how more or less this works. Just so anyone can actually see this. Yeah. Let me know if you can see my screen. Also going to zoom in.
We can see it now.
Can you see it? Okay, I'm zooming in. Is that big enough? Okay. All right. So just to go back to where the APIs are, if you go to the docs.mojaloop.io, there is an API tab here. Here you can access the specifications at the moment, right? Okay, sorry, just to get back to your question. So how we handle change requests and proposals, we have under the Mojaloop GitHub, or we have a Mojaloop specification and in here, this is where we actually have all and where we collaborate. For example, to come or a change or something simple as going to the issues tab, and we already have predefined templates. Sorry, my connection is a little bit slow. Can you guys still hear me?
We can now.
We can hear it's a bit delayed, but go ahead.
Hello? Okay, sorry. I think my connection is incredibly slow.
Why don't you talk through the process and I'll share the screen.
Okay, all right. So if you go to the issues tab, if you click on the new issue button on the top right, it should take you to a list of what you can create. So you're going to have an option of a change request, right? So if you're thinking of basically making a change to an API, generally how that works is a change request is first created, right? And the idea behind that is that's an open discussion about what you want and what the functionality is that you're looking for. And basically it's a discussion in terms of how more or less it can go about doing it. And then a solution proposal generally is what happens when the change request is approved, right? And so it's easy as going in here and basically clicking one of these things, and then literally you'll get a pre-populated document that you need to fill out with the information that you need, right? Like this. So you would enter your yeah,
So
go for it.
can I just add, Miguel? You don't have to have a solution. All you have to have is a problem.
100%.
So if you want something, but you don't know how to get it, then a change request is the way to submit it. And it'll be discussed, and eventually we will arrive at an idea for a solution, and that will be the solution proposal for that change request. So we're not asking you to know in advance how to solve a problem. We just want you to articulate the problem.
And if I may add, I think the CCB and the special interest groups encourage everyone to actually discuss this problem first, so that you don't have to go through this whole process by yourself. the special interest groups will help you go through that and help fill the templates if needed. Miguel, thank you. Continue, please.
Yeah, a good example of that, for example, just to show you more or less what that looks like in reality, right? If I'm just using ZenHub here, you need a ZenHub plugin for you to see this in GitHub, but you can access this from ZenHub. This is basically just a Kanban or a kind of more sprint view in terms of what sprint lane kind of view of what we have. If you come to this board, you can actually filter, and you can also filter in the issues board as well, but this is just a nicer view by the labels that we want. So for example, over here, admin API change request. And a good example is this one where we want extra properties for participants to be added. And so here you can see basically the form, the change request form has been filled out. And there's basically active communication between several parties in terms of what that looks like. This is basically the requirements. They even have screenshots to kind of convey some of those ideas, etc. And then down below, we have active discussions in terms of what would that look like and potentially working towards something that might be solution orientated. Yep, I think that's about it.
Thank you, Miguel. That's a great summary. So let me ask this question, starting off with Hendrik. Hendrik, which version of the API is currently the standard? And if you want to provide any other context to that, please go ahead.
Yep. The current version that we have right now is 1.1.1. This was released in September 2021. So the API has been fairly stable since we released it in 2018. But we are working both on version 1.2 and version 2.0. And these will then be finalized when they are required by your projects.
Thank you, Hendrik. Miguel?
So I'm a convening of two APIs, specifically the operational admin API as well as the settlement API. The admin API or the operational API has been very stable. It's on version 1, and we haven't actually had any changes or solution proposals yet. We've had some change requests to potentially enhance it. As you saw, one of them to add additional properties to participants. And we, for settlements, we're in version 2 already. However, from a future perspective, we are mostly working towards a new version of settlements, which is the vNext API. Most likely, we are going to adopt very much what's already being done as part of that work stream, but we are in the process of reviewing it. And there are also possibly some changes to the existing version of the admin API to accommodate the integration of the settlement vNext work into the current Mojaloop implementation at the moment. So I think that's what's more or less coming in the future from those two APIs perspective.
Thank you, Miguel. Julie, any context you want to offer on the ISO 20022 group, where we are, what the roadmap looks like?
Yeah, sure. So on our side, like we are basically in the process of defining the first version. So as Michael explained this morning, the idea is effectively to work with the RMG ISO 20022 committee to effectively understand what are the change requests we need to be able to actually use the ISO 20022 standard.
Can I just say one thing? You've probably noticed that on the list of special interest groups was 3PPI, or third-party payment initiators, and it had next to it then the illustrious name of JJ GWAX from Google. Now, that's essentially a memorial entry because JJ has now gone off to work on the dark side. He's now working for Meta. So he is no longer able to give us the fruits of his expertise. So help wanted. We need a convener for this special interest group. Someone who's interested in working on enhancements to the third-party payment initiator API. Now, you've heard over the course of this convening how important we think getting the engagement of third parties of various kinds is to increasing take-up in the Mojaloop system. Now, that means making sure that we have a third-party payment
Seems like we've lost connection with them. I'm just going to check really quick. Thanks for your patience, everyone.
I was worried that was me.
Oh, I think you're muted. Could you unmute, please?
Sorry?
Thank you. Oh, you were muted for a second. Thanks.
Oh, right. So I was muted just as I was about to say that Julie is a shining example of someone who contributes as the convener of a special interest group without, I think, being an API expert. So you don't have to be, but if you're interested in it, that's good. So as I say, we really need someone. Please come and contact me if you would like to be that person.
Thank you, Michael, for the pitch. Yeah, we're waiting to hear from you. So the next two questions, I'd like to club them together, if that's okay. So we'll ask the groups. Henrik, so what changes were approved during the last quarter or the program increment? And if you can you cover what's on the pipeline?
Yep, certainly. Since the last convening, we had one change that has been approved for version 1.2, and that is to better support financial platforms where a reservation for a transaction can't be made. So if a payee FSP sends that it has committed a transaction, but then for some reason the transaction fails in a switch, then the switch can send out an error notification to inform the payee FSP. And then some of the changes that we are discussing, we are currently discussing if the same can be provided for bulk to be able to send out that error notification. And we are also discussing how to identify a request in the participant endpoints, because it's not possible to identify single request there at the moment. And the specific use case here is to prevent the FSPs from registering account holders as having their default account as an FSP. And then we're also discussing FX support within the API. And one additional change request that we are discussing is adding an opaque element for KYC information. This opaque element will then allow the scheme to decide what format to use and which information to include as part of that. And then we just, before the convening now, discussed the process of bulk quotes. Currently in the API, that is defined to that the payer FSP defines a bulk into separate requests to each payee FSP. But in the reference architecture and in vNext, the switch can perform that for you. The drawback with that is that you won't get an end-to-end signature, as the switch will do some processing for you. But we'll continue with that discussion after the convening.
Thank you, Henrik. Great summary. I was going to ask you to touch on the FX as well, but thanks for doing that. Michael, anything you want to add on the FX side?
Yes, I realized that Henrik brought this up as a way of saying, Mike, you promised every meeting for the last 6 meetings to do something on FX and you still haven't done it.
Thank you, Michael. Miguel, we again have two APIs, the settlement and administration. Can you cover what changes were made, approved, and what's on the pipeline?
So as I said, nothing really has been approved in the last PI, but as previously mentioned, basically most of the changes that I suspect are going to be coming out of this PI are going to be related to the settlement changes. So once again, there are changes that probably need to happen to the operational API to support some of the changes for settlements going forward, or even potentially removing some APIs to support the changes as well, or deprecating rather, should I say. Of course, potentially the adoption of the vNext settlement API, which will probably be settlement version 3. I would hope so. Yeah.
So my view is, and I think Pedro will agree with me on this, there is no vNext API. vNext is a way of processing the existing APIs. And as Pedro said in his presentation, it's certainly possible to imagine that people might build completely different Mojaloops. But as long as they have the same APIs and can run the same tests and pass them, we say, great.
Thank
Correct.
you,
Well,
Miguel.
that's what settlement v3 is going to be, right? That's going to support the batches and all those kind of new settlement paradigms that we want to introduce, right, with the vNext. But yeah.
Thank you, Miguel. Michael. Julie, anything you want to add for that? The 4.2 and 3?
I think, like, you know, I just would like to add a call for action. Like, we really need some people in the working group, because it takes actually, like, you know, some time, and sometimes Michael and I disagree. So we need like, you know, some referees to sort of settle on what would be the best solution on some of the change we are trying to implement within the again ISO 20022 framework. So as Michael mentioned earlier, we are currently, like, you know, in the process of requesting changing for the PAX OA, and then we look then at other type of messages and then apply the same process, which is looking at the current standard, looking at what Mojaloop need, and trying to find either a place in the existing standard, or when we cannot find a place, request for a change.
Thank you so much, Julie. If I may ask, can you please give a big round of applause for our conveners? Thank you. Thank you, Henrik, Julie, obviously JJ as well, Miguel, Michael, and yeah, others who contributed to this. The rapporteur and convener role are elected roles for the CCB. So if you're interested, consider applying during the yearly election cycle. And thanks for sitting here and following the CCB and SIG's update. I'll give a chance to Michael to give a final word and close it. Thank you.
Well, I suppose the only final word I have is to give a special thanks to Sam for his indefatigable organization of the sometimes complex discussions that we have. Thanks very much, Sam.
Oh, we can't hear you, Simeon. Sorry. Thank you.
Check. There we go. Excellent. I promised to let you out of the room at exactly 5. It is exactly 5, but it's important for me to note the following. Now, there's a reason why Mojaloop is built in the structure of a community. One of those reasons is that it gives you a say in the direction of the development of Mojaloop. Now, as Paul mentioned, we need your nominations for new work streams. Now, tomorrow, please be in the room at exactly 10. One of the things we'll engage in is everyone will get us a chance to have a say on new work streams through a vote. So again, if you're not in the room, you can't make the decision. So please be in the room tomorrow. Actually, Paul, I'll let you voice this. Paul, are you online?
Thanks. I mean, I think you've pretty much said it, but I need to know what work streams that people in the room, people in the community want us to work on in the next PI. If you don't speak up before 10 a.m. tomorrow, it won't be in the next PI. So thanks everyone. This is your final call. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your evening. See you tomorrow, bright and early at 10 in the morning. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks.